So our topic this morning is forgiveness. Freedom of forgiveness is what dear brother Darren and I spoke about, the freedom of forgiveness. And we'll explore forgiveness, what it is, why do it, why forgive, and how, the practice, how to forgive. It's really the discussion. And I want to borrow first from Peace Pilgrim, from Dear Peace. And this will help us, I think, to get started this morning. This is an observation that she shares. And this is a realization for her and an actualization that came before she started walking her pilgrimage. And so she shares this. She says, one last comment about negative feelings, which helped me very much at one time and has helped others. No outward thing, nothing, nobody from without can hurt me inside psychologically. I recognize that I could only be hurt psychologically by my own wrong actions, which I have control over, by my own wrong reactions. They are tricky, but I have control over them too. Or by my own inaction in some situations, like the present world situation that needs action from me. When I recognized all this, how free I felt. And I just stopped hurting myself. Now someone could do the meanest thing to me, and I would feel deep compassion for this out of harmony person, this psychologically sick person who is capable of doing mean things. I certainly would not hurt myself by a wrong reaction, a bitterness, or anger. You have complete control over whether or not you will be hurt psychologically, and anytime you want to, you can stop hurting yourself. Now, this is, I get it, not a common view, especially in this time. Countercultural, isn't it? Kind of tends to go against the grain. But there we are. So, if we look at Webster's, at the definition of forgiveness, we get release. The key word is release. Release of negative feelings like this, release of events of the past, release of individuals who perform particular actions like that. Releasing what? Releasing what? There's a Sanskrit word, granta, and sometimes we'll hear this in yoga. Yoga psychology in particular. Granta, in English spelled Grantha. And it actually has multiple meanings, the word. One of them is to tie together, like knot, K-N-O-T. And so that meaning is actually the same as the word knot. And the other is book. And we'll kind of come back to that, which is a series of knots tied together. Story, series of knots tied together. And so let's reflect. And by the way, we need to share this. Everybody here, honest to God, just wants to be happy. Everyone here just wants to be happy. Honest to God truth. Everyone just wants to be happy. But there's an issue. And the issue is that there are countless ideas about what it would take in order to be happy, because obviously I'm not happy now. And so countless ideas, oh my God, countless ideas. You know this by now. If everybody were this way or that way, if believed what I believe or treated me a certain way, or if I had this or if I wouldn't have that, and the list goes on and on. And these are the knots, the knots. Here, we'll explore. So look at what happens. There's a fundamental issue here, and the issue is that I've forgotten who I am. I'm not this body. I am not this mind. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not these feelings, these emotions. I am none of it. I am eternal. So we could say spirit like that. And I don't mean that this human experience is not important. Oh my goodness, very important. Because it's full of opportunity. But I am having a human experience. I am not a human having a spiritual experience that gets it backwards. So I'm here with you in this body, seemingly so. And here we are experiencing together. So that's perfect. I'm never born. I never die. Our dear Peace Pilgrim, such a simple, beautiful soul. When she would be asked, how old are you? She would laugh and she would say, oh, I'm so grateful not to have to count anymore. I'm not this body. This body is the clay shell. I am that which animates the body. I am timeless and in radiant health, just like this with a beautiful smile. Yeah. And so here's the thing. Coming into this body, it's like we put a veil on, like we put a sack over our head, and we forget who we are. It takes a little while for it to actually happen, but it happens. I might have to do that a couple of times. It happens. If you talk with a 2-year-old and ask, where did you come from? You're going to get some funny stories. Here, I'm sitting next to the window. One mother told me, I came in through the window. That's what the child had said. One mother told me that her son had told her that he was she and was his mother's mother in the last birth. So, if we just allow for this, we put on this veil and we forget who we are. And we equate happiness with pleasure and avoidance of pain. And it happens very, very easily. Look, babyhood. So you might not remember, but imagine you're hungry, baby, hungry. And what does that mean? Food. Please, food. Come on, food. And so mom comes and feeds us, and it feels good, and we laugh. And then we burp, and the run up to the burp is pretty painful. And if she doesn't feed us, we don't laugh, we cry. And there's an equating here about, okay, when I get food, I'm happy. When I don't get food, I'm not happy. Of course, try eating too much and see how happy you are. But this is it. And then a little further on, we like toys. We like to play with toys. And of course, I only like to play with the toys that I like. I don't like to play with the toys I don't like. Oh my God, we're something. So now I can't get the toys myself. I don't have the means. I don't have a bank account yet. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. So I'm completely reliant upon others for the toys. And there's this very special toy that I have my eye on. And if my mother or father will get that toy for me, I'll be very happy for a moment. But in the mind, it's like, I need that toy. And even before the voice is coming out, still we're suffering from this, I need that toy. And so what do? We adapt and adjust. We behave in ways that will contribute to the other giving us the object which we perceive to be the object of our happiness. So we learn very quickly to become trained monkeys in order to behave in a certain way to get what we want. And it starts right there, babyhood. And look at how it manifests. Look at how it plays out. 4 years old, I'm sitting in the living room playing with a toy, and mother says, "Come to the table, it's time to eat." And I don't want to eat. I'm not feeling hungry right now. I want to sit and play with this toy. And so I continue to play with the toy, but my behavior is not pleasing to my mother. So she comes over, yells at me, and takes the toy away and says, I'm not giving this toy back to you because you behaved badly. I think we call that abuse in these days. But the real abuse is that I learn more about how to behave in order to get what I want. I became very manipulative, and I don't suppose I'm the only one. I'll tell you a little story. I'll make it very short. But this was such a big scar in little Swami, pre-Swami. I was with, I used to love to fish, and I would fish for hours at a time. And looking back on it, it was meditation practice, for goodness sakes. But you couldn't have told me that. And so I would stand on the dock or sit on the dock with the fishing rod and a little bucket, and I'd catch these little bitty fish and put them in the bucket, and then I'd pour them all back, and I would continue, and I could do it for hours, so I'm told. Well, I was visiting with my parents, grandfather and grandmother. And grandfather also loved to fish, and father loved to fish, and I loved to fish with them. I could not at the time imagine anything more pleasant, equating to more happiness than to be able to fish with them. And so, one day, I think I was probably misbehaving in their view and quite excited, and I kept pestering about going fishing. And finally, Grandpa looked at me and he said, "I'll tell you what, you take a nap and we'll go fishing." And so, okay, that got me going. I'm trained. And so I run in, I can't sleep, but finally I take a nap and I wake up and groggy eyes and first thought, fishing. And I come out of the bedroom and I'm looking around for Grandpa and Dad. And Grandma's there, and I said, "Where's Grandpa?" And she says, "He went fishing." I said, "What? What?" And she says, "Yeah, went fishing. But he told me that if I go take a nap, we would go fishing." And so they came back, and now, could I think of anything else other than this? For goodness sakes. How much did this occupy my little mind? Yeah, you get it. All the time. Still today, but it not in the same way anymore, thank God. So they came back And I went right up to him, and what did I say? You told me that, and I was very upset with him. And he laughed, and he said, yes, that's exactly right. I told you, go take a nap, and we'll go fishing. You went and took a nap, and we went fishing. But, oh my God, did that stick with me. But then all the little things that like this that don't. And then what happens in the personality? We become watchful, cautious. We become very careful. We focus so much on what other people do. He did this, and what they might do. And of this are born fear and anger and judgment and hatred and all of this stuff. All of this is bubbling up right from this. Why? Because we've equated our happiness with what happens to us, with what someone says or what someone does. They need to see me in a certain way. And that's that subliminal. I need for them to see me in a certain way because I need to get, fill in the blank, money, girl, guy, job, new home, fill in the blank. I mean, and I need to have that in order to be happy. You see, it's become a part of the mental process. It's not, and not, we don't even reflect upon it. These are cannots. Do you see it? Each one of these, they're knots. And what's tied, it's a cause and effect relationship, and it weaves a story, my life story. When I'm building my life, I build my life by tying knots. Now the issue is, it does not, N-O-T, make me happy. And at some point I'll realize this. It does not work. It does not do what I hope that it will do, what I believe that it will do. In fact, it works the opposite way. For every one of those knots, I get tied up and constricted. I become bound by the chains that I myself am weaving, am creating, linking together, tying together. You see? Yeah, this is it. So, this is why that life consists of two parts. The part where we create our life, one more time, where we create our life by tying knots. And then, and I'm creating my story. I'm creating Swami as a doctor, as a professor. Oh, that's right, a monk. And of course, being a monk is good. That's going to make me happy. Being a doctor, that's not true. These stories. So, the second part of life lasts as long as it needs to last until we're free. And the second part is becoming nobody. Breaking this bondage to the outer and the requirement that the outer is supposed to treat us a certain way. And only if it treats us a certain way could I be happy. Because the right things need to happen to me in order for me to have the experiences that will fill me. And of course, that's backwards. Because I am naturally Satchidananda. I'm naturally free. Naturally joyful. Naturally intuitive wisdom. All that I'm seeking is actually under the surface. Swami Premanandaji Maharaj, over here, would say, to enjoy life, you need to recognize that the world is like a banana. You have to peel it first. And the peeling of it is to get down below the froth on the surface, to get to the verities and realities of life, to get to the nature of spirit, the nature of peace. As Dear Peace would say, what is the way of peace? What is the way to find peace within our lives, to be at peace and therefore to be happy? Overcome wrong with right, falsehood with truth and hatred with love. Yeah, countercultural completely. So it's not about what happens to me. So I don't have to focus on what I get. It's about how I choose to live this life and how I choose to offer this life. So it's what am I offering? How am I offering in thought, word, and deed? And that allows me to unbind myself to be free and to be happy. And then I can breathe again. And so these are the knots, the knots, which we're tying, and we've tied so many of them. And if we allow for it, in countless births. So forgiveness is to untie the knots. And we have to. Eventually we have to. We have to stop tying them and untie them. And then we can breathe, and then we can be happy. This is the direct connection. Allow what happened to us to have happened. Accept it. It happened. Learn from it. And in particular, learn this relationship between what happens and how it's actually affecting me. Somebody says I'm a donkey. Does that mean I grow a tail and neigh? Does it? Does it? Why is it that if someone says I'm an idiot, why is that a problem for me? Why is it if someone else also forgot who they are and said or did something unbecoming which wasn't beneficial for them? Yeah? So that's what, and that's why. And from here, it's a very simple and straightforward. And we would say there's nothing more important. For freedom, there's nothing more important. I'll share, in closing, I'll share a story. I'll do it briefly. When I was still walking, I was in Maine with dear souls in Maine. And I was asked to join for a meal and then a discussion after the meal. A lovely discussion. And the host, Pam, dear Pam, she asked the group a question. There were maybe 8 of us or something like that. She asked an open question: is there anyone here who would like to share a story of forgiveness? And this dear soul spoke up and said, yes, I would. Please. I forgave my father. Okay, please share. When I was young, my father abused me. We don't know in what ways. And I hated him. I left, and I was so grateful to have left and to never have to see him again. But the way life played out, I had a brother and a sister. And he got older, the father, and finally was unable of taking care of himself. And so there was the choice, but there wasn't a choice because my brother and sister were not able to care for him. So he came to live with me, and I cared for him. But I hated him. I could not stand him. And every time I had to think about going home, my stomach turned. And what happened? And one day, I looked at him, and I realized he's not looking at him as where he is, sitting hunkered in that chair. He's not the one that abused me. And I chose to love him. And everything shifted in the room. And we talked for the first time in years. And we talked about all the good things that we had experienced together. We talked late into the night. And then I went to bed, he went to sleep, and as far as I can tell, about 2 a.m, he left his body. Died, what we call died. He left his body 2 a.m. Now, I ask you to consider these two possibilities. Everything here is a choice. There's the choice to forgive, and there's also the choice not to forgive. And of course, our own conscience pings us to forgive, to let it go. Yes? That's our guide. That's Guru. That's Holy Spirit. Our conscience within us. And yet we can choose not to do it. Yes? And so those options. Look at how this plays out. You know, I've met dear souls that in this situation, not knowing better, had chosen not, and then the parent or whatever left the body, and now they can't forgive themselves. Now it shifts and they can't forgive themselves. And so look and see what this choice did. And then if we just allow for the possibility that the sages are correct and that the way that we leave our body in this birth determines the way that we enter in the next. The psychological development carries forward. If we just allow for that, what about the Father and what impact? Yeah? Just allow for it. Now there's the question of how. And this is actually a simple one. And the dear soul that volunteered gives it to us. To choose love. To make the conscious choice inside to honor our conscience. And to release. To unbind. To unencumber. To bring into the heart, to wish well. People ask sometimes, how will I know if I've forgiven? And the answer will be, you'll feel it. You can't not know. If you say, I forgave that idiot a long time ago, I would say, maybe not. Many practices, but we don't start with the practice. We start with the choice. This is the message. God bless you. God bless us, everyone. Such a joy to be with you. God willing, maybe later this year, I can actually be with you physically again. But this is very cool. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Please forgive everyone for everything. You can start with what's easier. Forgive yourself. Forgive everyone for everything that's ever been done. Untie, unburden. Release yourself. Stand tall in spirit. Thou art what thou seekest. Be free. Be clear. Be happy. Be love. Love you so much. Om Shanti.